go. All right. Hello, everybody. We are 17 minutes late because we couldn't figure out how to get the nice camera to work. So we're just going to use the fuzzy camera that comes on the computer, and it's going to be okay.
And we won't look like so model-esque today. It's fine.
That's okay.
It's totally fine.
All right. So this week we're focusing on small groups. We figured it was a good time to kind of bring this back because people are sort of in the middle of Unit 5, Unit 6. We'll talk about introducing Unit 6 next week. I think 2 weeks.
Yeah, next week is the Super Bowl, so we figured, no one would be here.
The video after this will be on Unit 6, but today we wanted to talk about structuring small groups and what that kind of looks like, because maybe you're back from, break and you've settled in for the last month or so, and now you're like, okay, let's revamp these small groups. They're not really working well, or let's switch things up.
So students know the routines. They know kind of like what to do. You're not really, if you kind of have a feel of your students now. So
exactly. So let's look at your outline and start at the top. We were adding a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so some announcements first. We have a TPT sale coming up. It's a site-wide TPT sale, so everyone's stores will be on sale, marked up are off 25%, using the code FEBSALE25. So all of our M&M resources will be on sale, including our bundles. And we will talk about resources to use in small groups today, things that I developed when I was using benchmarking, teaching in small groups, and all of that will be on sale as well. So if you are interested in any of the things we talk about today, just hold off. Just put them in your wish list and then wait till it's on sale.
Tuesday.
Yes.
There's also within the group, one already posted this morning, and there's a lot of comments. There will be 3 more. So one tonight, one tomorrow morning, one tomorrow night.
Giveaways.
Yeah, giveaway teacher pay teacher gift cards. You just have to comment how you use a specific resource that we're posting about, and then you can win.
If you use it, yeah. So there are those opportunities. Look out for those. And then also, we've developed a couple freebies that will become available during the sale, and I'll be linking them in the emails that go out. Usually around a sale, I send 5 reminder emails throughout the few days.
Don't unsubscribe. They're coming.
I know, they're coming. And I still always get, a few afterwards, like, oh my God, I missed the sale. I'm like, really? I'm so sorry. I thought I was spamming you all week. But anyway, so in each of those emails, I'll be linking a freebie.
And then a couple people have asked about the planners. The pre-sale was last weekend, 2 weekends ago? I don't know. Time is blurring together. The pre-sale happened. So the pre-sale is over, but they will be back on sale March 1st.
Yeah, we're going to open up the planner shop March 1st. You can get your 2023-2024 teacher planner. Yay! And this year we offer vertical planning and horizontal planning and vertical planning. All right. So, you want to start us off?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are going to be talking about how to structure small groups. So Toluca went ahead and put 3 different ways. We'll be talking about those 3 ways and how hopefully we can make them work for your class.
Mm-hmm. So Benchmark is dependent on Readers and Writers Workshop. It calls it workstations. So the idea is that you're teaching your whole group mini lessons, and then you're providing that opportunity to practice the lesson independently and to kind of hone in on the skills that you're touching on. So, your whole group time, as we know, is meant to be rigorous. We all hate that word, but it's complex, it's hard, it's challenging. We've all talked about this a lot.
It's in the comments a lot.
And in your small group time, that's really when you can kind of bridge those gaps and meet students at their level where they are, and kind of make sure that they are being able to access what you are teaching. So it really is important to be able to set aside that small group time so that you can have that individualized practice with your students. So we haven't come up with these. They're just ways structures that have worked, that have been shared. They're not anything new or groundbreaking, but it might be something for you to kind of reconsider. If you're doing it one way and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I could try this way. This is another way that's already being used in someone's classroom somewhere. So method number 1 for structuring the small group time is I call it whole group to center ping pong. So, meaning you teach a whole group mini lesson. So, say it is on your spelling for the week. And then you immediately, right afterwards, go into your workstation time and students practice independently while you are pulling a group to do either like guided reading, or we'll talk about that afterwards. But
Right.
you're getting your one-on-one time. You're pulling out a group to work with you. Meanwhile, kids are practicing independently what you've just taught. And then you repeat. So after that little center, workstation, independent time, whatever you want to call it, you go back to whole class. Okay, boys and girls, come back to the carpet. Let's do our second lesson now. And then you do your like comprehension lesson, say for example. Then you ping pong into your independent time where they're finishing an independent task, and then you're pulling a group. And then you go back whole group and you do your writing lesson. Okay, so it's ping pong. This works well, I think, for kids that need that movement, that like that transition. You can hold their attention more, or the opposite. It might be too distracting for some kids to kind of ping pong that way, or you might be concerned about losing transition time. So
I think for the teachers who worry about like fitting it all in, which I see come up a lot, this might be good, especially if you set a timer in the beginning so you know, okay, I have 20 minutes to teach this lesson. Now I have 20 minutes or however long to 10 minutes to work with the group. Okay, timer, done. And then your kids know when they hear whatever sound, they're going back to the carpet or your center time is ending. So for that, I think it would be good. Time management.
Mm-hmm. All right, and method number 2 is whole group to seat work ping pong. So it's basically the same thing. You're teaching a whole group lesson, you have independent practice, but this time they're not going to like a center. So this is less like the daily 5 approach. The method number 1 is like they go to a word work center, or they go to a writing center, or whatever. This is more just like seat work. So you really are just working on your either a packet that you're given, or you're doing the independent practice portion of your lesson independently at your seat. And then meanwhile you're pulling your group, and then after that you go back to your whole group lesson and do your next lesson. So I know I've heard a lot of like 4th and 5th grade teachers that prefer this because their students can sit down independently and complete a task. They don't need to buddy up or be in a center.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've got a really talkative class and the idea of grouping them is stressful or just not realistic this year. So that's an option also. Your kids don't need to travel to a center.
Yeah. Or just, you could maybe do a combination of both. Some students do better maybe working with groups, or some maybe your struggling students need kind of a partner, so they could work at a center, but then, another student might do better at their seat. So you could do both.
Yeah, right? Like a
Whatever.
combination.
Yeah.
Okay, and then method number 3 is all whole group lessons, and then all your independent time all together at either a center or your seat. So this is the method that I used, and full on like disclosure, this doesn't work for everybody. Every time I share this, someone's like, that's weird. Yeah, so don't feel like you know, it's just whatever works for you. But what I did was I did all of my whole group mini lessons back to back. I first taught our, let's say, spelling, then I taught, spelling and grammar, then I taught comprehension, then I taught writing. We did all 3 lessons or 4 lessons back to back, and then we had our designated 30 minutes for centers. So after that, we traveled, and I actually had them go to different centers because before using Benchmark, I used Daily 5. And so that was something that my district was encouraging of back then when I was using this. So I still wanted to incorporate my Daily 5 center. So I had kids visit their center for the day, whether it was word work, read to self, writing,
Technology.
tech, yeah. And then I pulled my groups. And here's where I did things differently. A lot of teachers are like, nope, see ya, I'm not doing that. So I would do one center and pull one group, and that's it for the whole 30 minutes. So I didn't have to see my students, I didn't have to see everybody every day. Because of my circumstances, I had a very large class of students who were pulled out. I constantly had half my class was out, either in intervention or in speech or in resource. So I felt like I could just meet with one group a day and make sure that by the end of the week I've met with everybody at least one time. So when they were during their centers for that half an hour, my one group would be doing their word work for the whole time, and they weren't going to come back to it later in the week. They finished it that day, or they were going to do their writing task in that 30 minutes, okay? While I pulled my one group. And then I reserved Fridays for catch up. So instead of on Friday saying like, okay, you have to go do your word work, you have to go, do your text dependent questions with your independent reading, I would not assign a center, but instead everyone would just catch up. Like maybe I didn't finish my pamphlet, my grammar pamphlet. Maybe I didn't finish whatever the task was on Wednesday that I had. So I'm going to catch up Friday. And Friday, I met actually with my lowest group of readers again. So what it looked like when I was meeting with my kids was Monday, I met with my lowest group. Then Tuesday, I met with like my, I think I just had like my low, medium, high. I kept it simple. Medium, high. I had 2 mediums. Yeah. And then high, and then Friday, I met with my lowest kiddos again. So, yeah, that's how I structured it.
And I would say, yeah, what if they didn't finish their centers? Like, are we losing sleep about that? Probably not. Yeah. And something that I think is important to remember is, like, you want your students to be, I hate to say busy, like, because we think busy work, but you want them to be occupied so they're not like, hey, I need your help, So really not to put much weight into if they're completing or finishing the center to completion, perfection. That's not really what I would say you're looking for.
Yeah, because you're still providing meaningful, independent practice of that week's skills, or the previous weeks, depending on how you give your work. So it's still meaningful, but it's also going to free up the time for you to meet with your kids to either do your guided reading or your one-on-one assessments or working on fluency or designated ELD, whatever that really valuable time is with your smaller group, teacher time. That's the goal, right? So we want to have that opportunity.
And then for your centers, would you you're pulling the kids, so I don't know what I'm trying to say right now.
For independent.
Forget it. Yeah.
So we're looking at this page right here. This is something where I typed it all up, the 3 methods. So I'll share this with you guys in a link. So if you want to just reference it later. But here's the 3 methods, and then at the bottom I wrote like independent time and teacher time. I think I did it on here too. Yeah. You got it. There you go. So like the next question I get a lot is like, okay, well, what are we doing during this time, during the small group time? And that's going to look different for everybody, but here are some ideas. During that independent time where kids are working without you, they're not being pulled to sit with you, they can be doing the independent practice portion of your lesson. So at the bottom of your lesson in the TRS, there's an independent task, basically. So they could be working on that, following up with the lesson. You could be doing daily 5-style activities where, maybe you have the word work for the week, the writing for the week, read to self. You could be working on a project or an ongoing writing unit or something where it's going to be maybe, if it's not going to be too difficult. They don't need you for that portion of it. Like maybe it's creating a poster or something. So that could be something that they're doing independently with a center. And then during that teacher time, you can be working on guided reading using the leveled reader texts that come with the program. You could be following up, maybe going back to that lesson you just taught in whole group because you saw it was going over their heads and you're like, hey, let's go into this a little bit deeper. You could be doing your conferencing, like conferring with students, check their writing, assess their fluency, or you could do guided writing with them, which we did every once in a while. Like every few months we would switch it up and we would focus on a guided reading or guided writing unit with our students. Or it could be even your ELD, if you are struggling with fitting in your ELD, and of course if it's okay with your district, you've run it by them, then maybe that could be a good time to pull and do DELD. All right. Okay, so materials to use during the workshop time. So back when we first adopted the program in California, a lot of us were confused. We're like, okay, but what are we actually giving to them during their workstations if we don't just want them to be doing the independent practice portion of the lesson? We saw that there were inquiry-based projects that came with Benchmark that are really cool. They could write a response to the essential question, connecting that week's text. So if you have that guiding question in the beginning of the unit, after you've read the text, you can have them draft a response. How is it answering the question? You could have them reread the week's text on their own and write some sort of reflection that way. They could read a leveled reader from the unit and complete one of the independent activities found in the reader's teacher guide, the little card insert that comes with it. I used to have my students like preview the leveled reader before they'd come meet with me at their guided reading for that week. It would be on their Chromebooks, so it would actually read it to them, which was cool. So I didn't give them their hard copy always.
Especially if your students are below level, that might be better.
Hear it first.
Exactly.
So they've been exposed to it already. Yeah. You could have them complete an organizer from the ELD lessons. Incorporate text. So listen to that week's text from their mentor text or their student magazine, or listen to the leveled reader text. You could do some of the interactive learning games that are on Benchmark Universe, or even Reader's Theater, because the Reader's Theater books are really fun. Some things that I've created are the close reading companions. So if you're using those, that's a great way to follow up and have them complete that. Maybe work on the apply it question or finish a graphic organizer. Work on your word work pamphlets. Oh, I have a bunch of stuff printed out here. So like these little word work pamphlets for the week where they're practicing their spelling, their grammar, their vocabulary. I just created this because I didn't want to print off the big pages that come with the program, but this also, you could pull and print the worksheets, the Blackline Masters from the program for spelling and grammar for a word workstation. Continue with the independent practice portion of the writing lesson using like the writing booklets that I've created or the writing companions. Another thing is you could have students just reread their text, or maybe just a book of their choice, and then do this little lift a line. This is a freebie. I'll link all this stuff too. So this is where they practice pulling a direct quote and then responding to it. I have these response to reading question strips. You could have them create a digital graphic organizer. I have like these digital maps that I made a long time ago. And then lastly, in the focus wall posters, I created these little word cards. So like the vocabulary words, the spelling words, high frequency words. So kids could do like a quiz trade with those, or make a game out of those. So there's a lot of stuff. And then other ideas that, aren't necessarily my things, or what comes with the program is like you can have them go on Spelling City, record a book review on Flipgrid, create a team task like a poster with their independent center, Four Corners vocabulary.
It's like where you have the word in the center.
Yeah. And then just anything else that like makes you think like, oh, I really miss doing X, Y, and Z. I haven't done this in so long. Or I love doing X, Y, and Z, but where can I fit it in? That's a good time to try and incorporate that and then connect it to that week's skills and strategies. Okay. So it sounds like a lot, but like switch it up, pull from the curriculum, pull from other areas too.
I think some things that always get skipped over is like social studies. So anytime you can like incorporate science or social studies while you're doing the reading, that could also be something to pull in, especially once they get a little older and those texts aren't as difficult for them.
Yeah, it's a good idea too. Yeah. And then I forgot to mention this, but what I would do for my students just for organization, and I'll link this too, is I would just blow this up on a poster board, and then I would laminate it, and I would just write on it with a wet erase marker. But this had our stations up here, what they were, and then we had different teams here, and then meet with the teacher, and then this is where they would go each day. So team 1 Monday would do like word work, for example, then technology, then writing, then read to self, then catch up. And then this one would be, it would just start with the second one. It would look like that. And then, yeah, and then I would have like these little expectations posters also just pasted at the center, because I did have my kids travel. So I feel like I'm talking a lot. Do you want to talk about the teams versus like just how I structured the teams?
So some way, because when I, like me personally as a teacher, when I first heard like you explaining this, I was like, oh my gosh, like how would, if I'm, pulling my group, those students are a team also, but no. So when you think about pulling your groups, you're going to have, so I think the way that you had it explained was you had 4 teams. So obviously depending on the class size that you have, that might be 5 students, that might be up to like 8 students. But you don't want more than 4, because there's only 4 centers. So the teams are who travel to the centers.
Make more centers.
Yeah, so they're who travel to the centers. Within the team, you want to have a leader, someone, so they're going to be mixed levels, and they're also going to be mixed personalities. So, you're going to separate your chatties and, So you want a leader who's going to kind of be able to help the struggling students or the lower students. And then you're also going to want, I think you said a tutor. So the tutor kind of so the tutor is going to be who helps the strugglers.
So the leader is like the timekeeper, or like the, hey, get back on task. We have those students.
Yeah. But then your groups that you're working with, so your teams who travel to the different centers or workstations are going to be heterogeneous groups. So they're going to be mixed levels, mixed abilities, but then
boys and girls, friends and not friends. You don't want it to. You have to strategically group them, and I always laid it out. I made sure that these 2 kiddos were separated, or these 2 kids work really well together. I'm gonna keep them together, things like that.
Yeah, and then the groups that you're going to be working with are homogenous groups. So based on their abilities, you want them to be grouped similarly, because that way when you're pulling them, they're all around the same level, so you can really meet them where they are.
Or have the same need, strategy need. Maybe it's a close reading strategy, or maybe it's a phonics need. So something connects them.
Right. That way you're able to meet them where they are and better support them. Because really, you want the group to be, I don't know, I want to say tier 2. You want it to be a tier 2 intervention. You want it to be a reteach of what you just did, or it could also be a tier 3, meeting them where they are to, better support them and help them to close those gaps. That's my ASC lingo, sorry. And when the students are in their centers working, they just know based on the schedule that you're posting that when you're going to be working with them. And I know when I was doing this in my own classroom, they see their name, and even when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, they see and they want to work with you. So they're like, is today our day? Do we get to, and they'll look forward to that, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you can have them by color too. So you have your teams, and I always have them come up with their own team name. It's usually real silly. And then down here, meet with the teacher. You can either group them and give them a color group, or fruit, or whatever. Or you can just write out their names. I think I did that too. Mainly I just wrote their names down here, who was being pulled with me on Monday, who was being pulled with me on Tuesday, etc.
And these groups should be not necessarily the teams, but obviously those could change too. But you're gonna, as the year progresses, hopefully your students are moving along, so your lows aren't gonna be such a small group. Maybe your highs are you're probably gonna have a lot more highs
by the end of the year.
Right. Yeah. So in a perfect world, you won't have any lows and you'll have all the highs. So then, as the year goes on, maybe you'll only have, which is probably better if you have the lows more in a small, a 2-to-1. I would think that would be even better, because then you could really help them. They used to tell us, as long as you met with them once a payday. So we had to meet with our small groups once every 10 days.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, but I think this is better, trying to fit them all in at least a couple times.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's covered it. I don't want this video to become giant. So we have a ton of links to give. Like I have a ton of freebies created for small groups, activities, the posters. I even have like a chart you can use to help you configure your teams with little reminders like not too many boys in one group, things like that. So I'll go ahead and find all those and we'll link them in the comments. And let us know if you've got any questions. There was a question that came in recently saying like, oh, I need materials for small groups, and I hope that I helped, and supported with just my like long list of things. But if you need, clarification or specifics on anything, just let us know.
Yeah, we're happy to help.
All
we'll
right.
see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.